A red-haired girl at a grand ball observes the scene, which is described as a perfect moment from a romantic fantasy anime game. A beautiful red-haired girl in a yellow gown gently holds a small, white, gerbil-like creature in her palm. Her mission is revealed: to capture 6 characters, one by one, as she's shown about to kiss a silhouetted man. However, a dark and ominous thought bubble reveals there is just one problem with her plan. The red-haired girl is startled as an unseen person calls her name, Uriel. A blonde-haired man suddenly grabs Uriel's hand from behind, shocking her. He is introduced as Javier Romantina, the dashing first prince of the Romantina Empire. Javier dramatically declares he would give up the entire empire for her, but Uriel panics and frantically refuses, leaving him confused. Bang Uriel is shocked, thinking he can't confess now, as she and Javier stand frozen in a tense moment. A man with long purple-pink hair and fangs, Soma Asmodeus, appears, declaring Uriel is already his beloved. Uriel immediately denies it. A dark-haired man in a black cloak appears, softly calling Uriel's name. He is Cashion, master of the magic tower, who takes her hand and asks her to join him, calling her his only source of encouragement. Hoo-ha-ha-ha. A wave of laughter erupts as the scene shows a bug-eyed Uriel, shocked by Cashion's intense confession. A beautiful woman with light blue hair and butterflies scolds the men, calling them ridiculous for fighting over a single girl. The woman, Yvonne Neverchild, smiles and declares that Uriel must come live with her in the Neverchild forest. The 4 suitors reveal their selfish intentions. Javier threatens them, Soma wants Uriel to himself, Cashion plans to seal them all, and Yvonne wants a party buddy. Wah. Overwhelmed by the competing confessions, Uriel lets out a desperate scream. "None of you are allowed," Uriel shouts, rejecting all 4 of her suitors at once. In despair, Uriel cries out in frustration, realizing she can't possibly clear the game this way. A mysterious silhouetted man with white streaked hair appears behind Uriel, asking if she has forgotten something. His face hidden in shadow, the man extends a hand and smilingly states that romance is strictly forbidden here. Whoa, Uriel sweats, panicking as she wonders what she is supposed to do now. She recalls a past attempt where a blushing Cashion reacted to her confession, questioning if she truly liked him. In her memory, she leans in to kiss him, her face a blank mask with glowing white eyes. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny day outside a magnificent estate. Uriel White, eldest daughter of the Duke, wakes up in her lavish bed surrounded by roses, thinking, again. She clutches her head and screams in agony, furious over yet another failure. Uriel throws a tantrum, screaming that this is the 10th time, while her maid enters with a tray, completely bewildered by the outburst. A beautifully ornate book lies next to a simple, sealed envelope. Uriel reflects that the game seemed perfectly made for her, but the reality is just pure frustration as she squeezes the little white creature. With a dramatic flourish, Uriel stands on her balcony as her maid watches with a crowned expression of concern. A hand defiantly flips a censored middle finger. Well, that's one way to express frustration. Uriel furiously curses the game, threatening to kill its creator, while her maid looks on in utter shock at her language. Her rage continues as she vows to find the person who trapped her in the game and tear them apart. A grand white and pink carriage, drawn by 2 white horses, waits in the courtyard. Sitting in the carriage, Uriel takes a drink from a wine bottle, convinced that something is definitely wrong with her situation. Her maid panics, scolding Uriel for drinking in broad daylight, while a flustered Uriel is caught in the act. The maid continues her lecture, but Uriel tunes her out, thinking to herself that she couldn't help it. Facing a glowing pink system window, Uriel explains that in this endless, looping game, her stress has piled up way too much. A profile on Cashion reveals his tragic past. He's a great dark magician who was sacrificed by his own father and bound to a demon, trapped in eternal darkness. Uriel thoughtfully considers Cassion's cruel life, believing she could capture him if she could just ease his loneliness. She arrives in the familiar Romantina village, a place she has visited countless times before. Bumping into a cloaked figure, Uriel quickly apologizes and asks if he is all right. She realizes she has met her first capture target, Cashion, the very person who has caused her to restart the game dozens of times. Uriel cheerfully tries to invite him for tea, but the hooded Cashion coldly tells her to be more careful and brushes her off. "Wait a second," she calls out, but he continues to walk away down the cobblestone street. She trips and falls to the ground, while he continues on, only pausing to mutter, before leaving her behind. Her maid rushes to her side and yells at the departed brat, but Uriel just stares ahead, deadpan, thinking he's gone. A game notification confirms her failure. Cashion has decided to leave and says a final goodbye. A system message explains the failure. Due to his demon's curse, Cashion's deep mistrust of humans causes him to react to her confession with disgust. She despairs over another impossible failure. Even if she succeeds in romancing Cashion, he dies of sorrow, triggering a game over. Her maid Anne rushes to her side and offers to deal with the rude man, but Uriel simply says she's fine. Taking the blame, Uriel calmly states it was her fault, causing her maid to admire her lady's graciousness. Anne praises Lady Uriel's considerate nature, only for Uriel to immediately shatter the image by excitedly asking a shopkeeper if a massive demon-slaying axe can smash anything. Anne takes back her compliment. Hoo-ha-ha. The shopkeeper laughs at the so-called noble lady, while Anne frantically grabs Uriel, insisting the axe isn't for sale. The shopkeeper, Verdo, laughs and says he thought she was heading to the Thames Forest, leaving a confused Uriel to wonder what he's talking about. Thames Forest, Uriel asks, prompting Verdo to realize with an oops that he has said too much. The Thames Forest is a wicked, dangerous place in the north full of demons, where even a prince once vanished. Verdo explains that a legendary Thames flower grows there, which can break any curse, attracting many adventurers despite the danger. Struck by a bolt of inspiration, Uriel gasps and asks Verdo to confirm if there's really a flower that can break curses. Overjoyed, Uriel realizes this could break Cassion's curse and eagerly asks for more information, but the shopkeeper advises her to give up. Verdo crushes her hopes by revealing the flower only blooms once every 1,000 years, and the next one isn't for another 859 years. Her brief hope shattered, Uriel stands dejectedly before the large front door of her home. Ugh, Uriel sighs, frustrated that the one hope she found for breaking Cassion's curse is completely out of reach. She explodes in a fiery rage, swearing to hunt down the game's developer as the endless restarts push her emotions to their limit. She grimaces in pain, remembering the ankle she twisted earlier is still throbbing. Her thoughts turn dark as she questions if breaking the curse would even work, or if she'd still fail and be trapped. Clutching her small companion, she despairs, wondering if she will ever escape this endless game. HMPH. Her despair quickly turns to defiance as she declares she won't give up now. With her emotions swinging wildly from the constant restarts, Uriel's face contorts with fierce, almost manic determination. Looking at an image of Cashion, she vows she'll never give up, not until she gets to punch the developer in the face. She's startled to find Cashion blushing and looking at her, leaving her just as confused. Turning around, Uriel recognizes the cloaked figure as the man from earlier, Cashion. Her maid, Anne, opens the door and scolds her for not going to the infirmary for her injury. As Cashion walks away, Anne's voice calls out in concern, asking about Uriel's ankle. Anne asks if she is all right to walk, and Uriel insists she is fine. A dangerous sign for the Thames Forest appears, followed by a shot of the mighty demon-slaying axe. Her new plan is set. In a flash, Uriel appears in adventuring gear, confidently holding the demon-slaying axe she ultimately decided to buy. Clenching her fist, she declares that there must be one flower that bloomed early, and she won't know until she tries. Facing the foreboding forest with her axe, Uriel vows to break Cashion's curse and finally succeed in romancing him. The scene abruptly shifts to a modern city skyline at sunset. A bright, smiling young woman with brown hair is introduced as Shin Yuri, 23 years old. Unseen colleagues comment that Shin Yuri is leaving work early for her game, musing that dating and gaming are similar these days. Leaving the office at night, Shin Yuri walks down a hallway and stops, confused, as if something is wrong. The game's title screen, Romantina of Happiness, shows Uriel surrounded by her silhouetted love interests. A flashback reveals that upon entering the game, all her sensations became vividly real, from losing HP to gaining MP. Bound by chains, she reflects on how she ended up as the heroine in a romance game. Back in the forest, Uriel decides to camp for the night, still adjusting to life inside a game world. Uriel sits alone by a small campfire in the dark, dense woods. Pondering how to find the tham flower for Cashion in the massive forest, she's offered an apple by her little white companion. She recalls the shopkeeper, Verdo, being the one to tell her about the Thamflower in the first place. Remembering a quest from a man named Pedro to seek the Thamflower, she reasons that game characters must have logic behind their actions. With a death count now too high to track, she glares at an image of Cashion, convinced his spineless behavior is due to his curse. While practicing her swings by the fire, her little companion nervously roasts a marshmallow, getting a little too close to the flames. Grow, WWLLLL. A deep, menacing growl echoes through the forest, startling Uriel. Surrounded by glowing red eyes in the dark, she stands frozen as an unseen voice calls her a foolish human. The voice boasts that it took care of everyone who ever dared to enter the forest. Wah! A giant, muscular, horned, cat-like beast appears, holding her little white friend hostage. It is Jagal, the forest guardian. But instead of attacking, the great beast Jagal begins to cry, tremblingly asking Uriel, "You dare," while her companion looks on, baffled. Uriel stands before a glowing tree, watched by an entire crowd of smaller, horned cat creatures. The great beast Jagal roars, accusing Uriel of harming the sacred tree of life, the heart of his tribe, and declaring her an enemy of the forest. Holding her tiny companion hostage, Jagal vows Uriel will never leave alive, as a system message confirms she's cornered by the Thames forest monster. Tiscardil grits her teeth, admitting she didn't know the tree was important, but refusing to accept another game over. With a wicked grin, Uriel declares she has no choice but to use it, leaving a baffled Jagal to wonder what she's talking about. Uriel's hand firmly grips a handle as she recalls paying 100 gold for her secret weapon at the magic shop. She reveals the massive, gem-encrusted demon-slaying axe, confidently declaring the games are all about being pay to win. As the expensive axe gleams, Uriel insists it must be the strongest, while the terrified cat creatures think the human's weapon looks insane. Admitting it feels like overkill, Uriel hoists the huge axe and tells her foes to prepare themselves for battle. Whack! Uriel swings with all her might, but the axe hilariously shatters upon impact, its head flying off while Jagal stands unfazed. Uriel and Jagal stare in mutual, wide-eyed shock at the weapon's spectacular failure. Wahahaha! The cat-like creatures, including Jagal, collapse in hysterical laughter at her failed attack. Jagal mocks her typical human weapon, but then spots her fleeing and angrily yells for her to come back. Uriel runs for her life, wailing in agony that she was scammed out of her money. Determined not to die and restart again, she pushes herself to keep running from the pursuing monster. Gah! Mid-flight, Uriel trips and plummets towards the ground. A brutal slash fills the screen, signifying a vicious attack. In a dark void, a bruised and scratched arm is shown as Uriel thinks about how sore her whole body is. Dazed and battered, Uriel sits up amidst rubble and wonders what in the world just happened. Her eyes widen in confusion as she looks up from her strange landing spot. She finds herself sitting inside a massive, ornate fireplace, slowly realizing where she must be. Standing up, Uriel recognizes the grand room and the large magic circle on the floor, confirming her suspicions. With dawning horror, she realizes she's in Cashion's magic tower, the place he dies the most. A jolt of panic strikes her as she understands the immediate danger of her situation. Another game over. Cashion Heller declares his mood has tanked and he's going to die, promptly succumbing to depression and leaving Uriel utterly baffled. The scene resets to a flustered young boy with black hair, a younger Cashion, who appears in a shower of sparkles. Uriel and the small, cloaked boy stare at each other in a long, awkward silence. Now sitting calmly in a chair, Uriel processes the unexpected turn of events. Holding a teacup, she gives a nervous smile, trying to navigate the strange new situation. Uriel asks the boy, who is peeking timidly from behind his large cloak, to come closer so she can hear him. She thinks that she never imagined Cashion could be such an adorable little kid, while the blushing boy shyly admits he's not good with people. Beaming with hope, Uriel sees this as a new chance, and asks the young Cashion if he knows about the Thamflower. The boy confirms he knows of the Thamflower, as Uriel recalls that it's a legendary flower that blooms once every 1,000 years under the Tree of Life. The young Cashion bluntly tells a smiling Uriel that finding such a flower is absolutely impossible. Uriel breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the terrible mistake she's made. This is bad. She panics, thinking if he finds out she chopped down the Tree of Life, he'll die again, triggering another game over. Tap. Needing to escape, Uriel puts down her cup, and nervously announces she should be going. She stops short as the young Cashion suddenly appears right in front of her. The boy grabs her sleeve with surprising strength, insisting that he can't let her leave. Sweating, Uriel desperately asks if he knows something about the tree she destroyed. His hand clenches her sleeve as he reveals she's the first person to ever see his true form, transforming into a taller, older version of himself. Cashion coldly tells a stunned Uriel that because she knows his secret, he can't let her live. His eyes glowing red, he leans in and orders her to die, leaving Uriel terrified. "Wait, hold on," she shouts, completely confused by his sudden murderous intent as the dark tower looms outside. Frantic, Uriel raises her hands and swears she won't tell anyone about his secret. She pivots, declaring that she actually wants to help break his curse, which catches Cashion completely off guard. Cashion gives a cold, skeptical smirk, his face hidden in shadow. As he mutters about not trusting humans, Uriel yawns, completely bored by his gloomy attitude. "Trust me," she insists with a smile, certain that even this can be solved since it's a romance game. Shick. She suddenly lunges past him with a weapon, apologizing that she missed her target. Wielding dark magic, Cashion promises to kill her painlessly next time, as Uriel realizes with horror that he is 200% serious. Desperately trying to escape, Uriel screams that she doesn't want to die like this. As she flees down a long tower corridor, a voice taunts that it's useless to run. As the tower has no exit, unwilling to give up, she desperately scans the hallway, convinced there must be at least one exit among all the doors. Thunk! She throws open a door, hoping for an escape, but screams in horror upon discovering a gruesome torture chamber instead. Trying another door, she's startled by a tiny, cat-like creature with a pink bow, who accuses her of being an intruder. Uriel immediately apologizes. Frustrated that there isn't a single proper room, she looks up at the foreboding tower where a lone silhouette watches from a high window. An unseen voice asks if she has given up yet, causing Uriel to turn with a weary sigh. Deciding her best option is to hide, she cautiously peeks into another room, hoping for a safe haven. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she takes in the unexpected sight before her. She finds herself in a surprisingly normal and cozy-looking child's room. Relieved, she finds a teddy bear and wonders if this could be Cashion's childhood room. Her attention is drawn to an ornate picture frame sitting on a nearby desk. Approaching a table, she curiously observes the picture inside the frame. The photo reveals a young, black-haired Cashion standing beside a tall, white-haired man holding a teddy bear. Startled by the realization, Uriel whirls around, declaring she's had enough of this game. She's stopped in her tracks as Cashion appears before her, coldly telling her to stop. Cashion stares at her with an intense, unreadable expression, leaving a long silence. A hand gently pats Uriel's head, much to her surprise and confusion. A voice echoes through a magical haze, revealing it already knows her secret from the jackals. In a flashback, Cashion confronts Uriel by the fallen tree of life, accusing her of cutting it down. Back in the present, she realizes with horror that this is why he wanted to kill her. Cashion nervously stammers, trying to deny her unspoken accusation. He clarifies that the flower wouldn't break his curse anyway, a revelation that leaves Uriel utterly shocked. "What?" A cry of disbelief echoes through the dark forest. Uriel frantically grabs her head, yelling about the pointless trouble she went through, while a confused Cashion looks on. Furious, she questions if the game is even beatable before trailing off with a sigh. Suddenly, thorny vines erupt and ensnare her. Cashion explains that it's troublesome for anyone to know his true form. Power radiating from his hand, Cashion coldly orders her to disappear from the forest forever. Trapped and helpless, Uriel grits her teeth, wondering how she's supposed to romance such a crazy character. A system window asks if she wants to quit the game. Thinking she can't take it anymore, her hand reaches toward the yes option. She screams in desperation, begging to be let out of the game as the vines tighten. In a sudden shift, Cashion lies on the ground, telling her not to be afraid and that it was nice talking to someone before he goes. He promises she won't feel any pain, which only enrages the trapped Uriel further. Clutching his chest, Cashion abruptly changes his mind, telling her again not to be afraid. Leaning close, he commands her to look at him, vowing that he'll use the flower or whatever it takes to break his curse. While he insists it's impossible, Uriel defiantly declares she'll keep trying no matter how many times it takes. With fierce resolve, she vows to break his curse and win him over, warning him to be prepared. Stunned by her declaration, Cashion stammers, completely caught off guard. as his magic surges. His voice trails off as a wave of pink energy crackles around him. A massive pillar of light erupts, filled with loading messages and system alerts. The brilliant beam of energy signals a dramatic shift in the world. Uriel floats peacefully in a gentle void, her eyes closed as petals drift around her. Opening her eyes, she finds herself falling toward a seemingly endless field of beautiful blue flowers. Landing softly, she wonders where she is and why the game didn't restart, confused about Cassion's whereabouts. Her hand reaches down and gently plucks a single, perfect blue rose from the field. Holding the flower, she looks around the vast expanse and wonders if this game has an end. While glad she found the flowers, she worries she will be trapped here forever with no way out. Her thoughts darken as she imagines herself succumbing to despair and dying alone in the field of roses. Her panicked fantasy is interrupted as she makes a startling discovery right beside her. Looking down, she's shocked to find a blonde-haired person sleeping among the roses and wonders who they are. Kneeling beside the sleeping blonde man, Uriel is startled by a sudden sparkle near his head. Panicked, Uriel wonders aloud if she should perform CPR on the unconscious man. Leaning down with a determined and flushed face, she prepares to resuscitate him. With a flash of resolve in her eyes, Uriel commits to her life-saving attempt. Her attempt is brutally interrupted as she's pinned to the ground with a sword at her neck. As a hidden quest unlocked notification appears, the newly awakened blonde man asks, "You?" while Uriel thinks that's her question. The formal blonde man looms over her with the sword, his eyes hidden in shadow. A tense close-up focuses on the crisp, white cravat at the man's throat. Blink, Uriel awakens in a lavish bed, finding a small, white, ferret-like creature perched on her shoulder. A maid with glasses and light brown hair leans into view, cheerfully asking if her lady is awake. Looking around the familiar room, Uriel realizes with a sinking feeling that she's back at the beginning. As the maid offers a wash basin, Uriel sits dazed, wondering if her recent terrifying adventure was just a dream or a game bug. Startled, Uriel stares as the ferret on her shoulder demands to know what she's been doing. The ferret angrily accuses her of messing up the entire game. Leaping with agitation, the ferret declares the world is full of bugs because of the errors she caused. Clatter! The shocked maid drops her basin, exclaiming, "Oh my!" Thrown to the floor by the shock, Uriel listens as the creature reveals it's a guide NPC sent to fix her errors, and only she can hear it. While Uriel mutters in confusion about errors and guides, the oblivious maid swoons, thinking how cute her lady is. Fed up, Uriel yells at the guide to forget the explanations and just let her out of the exhausting game. She angrily questions how any of this is her fault when the dating game is so impossibly difficult. The small white guide looks up at the distraught Uriel, listening to her rant. The guide smugly crosses its arms, leaving Uriel speechless and confused. From outside a grand mansion, a voice screams in disbelief, "No way." An ornate title card appears, asking the question, "What is Romantina of Happiness?" The game's mechanics are revealed, showing a low affection meter for a tsunder like Cashion. The game's objective is described as conquering the path to marriage in a Bishunin romance simulation. A romantic silhouette shows Uriel dancing with a male partner under a pink moon. The truth is revealed. The game's objective is to make characters happy, forbidding love. Identified as Uriel White, she screams in a framed portrait, realizing it's a happiness simulation game, not a romance one. Back in her room, Uriel clutches her head, finally understanding her fundamental mistake. The guide scolds a dumbfounded Uriel, shocked she didn't realize the game's true goal after so many bad endings. Uriel explodes with rage, demanding to speak to the developer and screaming about the absurdity of banning love in a romance fantasy game. Outside the grand estate, a calm voice calls for the miss. A sparkling clean broom is shown sweeping the floor with magical efficiency. A stunned maid, Anne, insists that cleaning is her job, as Uriel takes the broom from her. With newfound resolve, Uriel tells Anne she wants to experience a different life and refuses to fade away as a noble. Moved to tears, Anne looks at her miss with sparkling eyes, touched by her determination. While sweeping, Uriel encourages herself, but then worries how long it will take to raise her stats this way. The guide on her shoulder looks alarmed. The guide explains that Cashion requires 1,000 wisdom or trust to even talk, making Uriel despair that she's stuck forever. Hopeful, Uriel lights up as the guide reveals it knows of one other method and demands to hear it immediately. The guide warns the method is unstable due to a bug, but Uriel grabs it, insisting she doesn't care after failing 100 times. A pink backpack materializes from the inventory system with a pop. Looking skeptically at the backpack, Uriel hesitates as the guide reminds her she'd try anything. Frustrated, Uriel complains that she has already checked her inventory countless times to no avail. Opening the bag, she's stunned to find it full of glowing blue roses, the Thames core. Her inventory screen confirms she has multiple rare Thames core flowers, leaving her to wonder how she got them. Recalling the field of blue flowers and the mysterious blonde man, Uriel realizes with dawning horror that it wasn't a dream. Stunned, she looks away, quietly wondering if that surreal experience was actually real. The guide furiously berates her, confirming the dream caused a massive amount of trouble. It explains that the Thames forest is known for system errors, which she worsened by trying to force a shutdown there. The guide sternly warns Uriel that if she continues to deviate from the game's manual, things will become truly dangerous. The guide delivers a grave warning. Regardless of whether she completes the game, she could become permanently trapped inside it. Panicked, Uriel screams in disbelief, her eyes wide with terror at the prospect. Back in her room, Uriel frantically clutches the guide, despairing over her real-life job promotion. The guide calmly tells her to relax, as this is why it's here. As Uriel holds the guide, it advises her to be patient and follow its instructions step by step, which she finds surprisingly adorable. The scene transitions to the quaint and sunny Romantina village. In the village, a cloaked figure appears as the guide explains Cashion is often here, asking Uriel if it was her first time seeing his true self. The guide notes that Cashion's personality prevents him from showing weakness, leaving Uriel to ponder how desperately he hid his true nature. Tisk. The guide scolds her for trying to romance him instead of breaking the curse, but Uriel snaps back, asking how she was supposed to know she was cursed. Filled with a new plan, Uriel dashes through the village, hopeful she can finally succeed without forcing a conversation. She cheerfully approaches the cloaked Cashion from behind, announcing she has a valuable item to present to him. Cashion turns, his red eyes glowing intently as he asks if she has heard of the Thames core. Uriel brightly confirms she has the Thames core and states her name is Uriel, prompting a confused Cashion to ask, me, as dark energy crackles. The guide asks Cashion how he knows that name, but a voice suddenly screams, Shinuri, get away, as Uriel's eyes widen in shock. Reacting to the sudden warning, Uriel can only gasp in confusion. Kia, a massive explosion erupts in the village as screams fill the air. As Cashion walks away through the destruction, Uriel stares in horror, wondering what just happened. Uriel reels from the shock, wondering how he knows her real name and if his memory is still intact, while the guide groans. The guide explains that Cashion remembering her is a major system error, and his use of explosion magic has classified him as a dangerous entity. The guide collapses in despair, whimpering that this route is completely broken and beyond its ability to fix. Unfazed, Uriel cheerfully runs up to Cashion, asking if he remembers killing her. Surrounded by dark energy, Cashion remains silent, his expression unreadable. Uriel smiles brightly, cheekily asking if he's curious how the person he killed came back to life. Grabbing his cloak, she asks if he's insane and boldly declares that perhaps she can save him. His eyes widen in shock as a wave of dark energy pulses from him. The violent energy continues to ripple through the air. Amid the ruins, system alerts reveal both Uriel and the guide have already died and been revived. Suddenly terrified by his insanity, Uriel reconsiders her plan, thinking she should give up and begging him to stay away. Her fears cut short as she looks up, surprised, and begins to say, "You always." In a stunning reversal, Cashion blushes and shyly hides his face in his cloak. He remains hidden in his cloak, face flushed and completely flustered. Uriel and her guide stare in utter confusion, wondering what is happening. An affection meter pops up, showing a slight increase, while Uriel questions if she's finally on the romance route despite Cashion's insane caution stat. As Cashion takes a step back, Uriel cautiously asks what he's doing. A single, glowing blue rose appears in Uriel's hand. She offers the rose to Cashion, formally apologizing for her discourteous behavior. Kneeling before him on the broken cobblestones, she lowers her head respectfully. Uriel humbly presents the flower, explaining she only wanted to help him with the Thames flower. Looking down at the kneeling Uriel, a flustered Cashion blushes, his thoughts racing. Smack! The guide leaps off her shoulder and slaps her, telling her to suggest they sit down for a calm chat over tea instead. The guide whispers that this is the most progress they've ever made by just talking, much to Uriel's annoyance. Suddenly, a force pulls Uriel and the guide backward. Cashion reaches out as she's dragged away, wondering how a noble lady came across the Thames flower. Stumbling backward, Uriel listens as Cashion coldly states the flower is useless and won't lift his curse. He turns away, lamenting that even with the legendary flower, he still doesn't know how to break the curse. Uriel listens intently as the guide on her shoulder whispers a new piece of information. She blurts out that it needs the royal heirloom, startling Cashion with her knowledge. Stunned, Cashion realizes she didn't find the flower by luck, while Uriel smugly declares that she has her ways of knowing things. After the guide whispers the secret, Uriel glows with confidence, puffing out her chest and asking Cashion if he sees how amazing she is. Holding the rose he now possesses, Cashion listens as Uriel vows to find the heirloom and break his curse no matter what. The guide bluntly informs a smug Uriel that finding the heirloom is impossible with her beginner stats, but she remains undeterred. Uriel complains that the guide should figure something out, but Cashion asks why she's acting smug about an impossible task. Caught talking to the guide, a flustered Uriel gasps, wondering if Cashion heard her. As magical energy swirls, a hand firmly grasps her wrist. Now holding her hand as they float above the village, Cashion asks if she would truly help someone like him. Uriel stares back at him, surprised and deeply touched by his question. A bright flash of light signals a magical transition over the village. The scene shifts to a massive, dark magic tower under a starry purple sky. Uriel and Cashion approach the imposing entrance to the grand magic tower. Awestruck Uriel marvels at the overwhelming size of the magic tower as Cashion walks beside her. Hiding behind a large rock, Cashion suddenly turns to Uriel and asks why she summoned him. Stunned by his question, Uriel can only let out a shocked exclamation. A giant horned cat-like creature appears, asking what the matter is. A system window identifies it as the forest guardian Jagal. Cashion calmly instructs Jagal to escort Uriel to the drawing room, and she realizes the guardian follows his orders. Tisk, the forest guardian Jagal, begrudgingly agrees to Cashion's command. Uriel climbs onto Jagal's back as a system notification confirms he has become a mount, increasing her speed. Thud, Jagal's giant paw slams down, cracking the ground with magical force. Jagal's paw opens a magical vortex, and a system message announces they've entered the dungeon of Cashion's Mage Tower. Riding on Jagal's back, Uriel gazes in wonder at the incredible, sparkling interior of the tower, exclaiming her amazement. She and Jagal ascend a magical, spiraling staircase that floats through the tower's mystical space. Uriel holds on, remarking to herself that the Mage Tower feels as mystical as she expected. They approach a glowing purple door at the top of the floating staircase. Jagal announces their arrival, leaving a surprised Uriel to wonder how they got there so fast. At the top, Uriel is shocked to see Cashion waiting in a different form as a new map is unlocked, the Mage Tower's reception room. Now, a small child, a blushing Cashion, explains he uses this form inside the tower to manage the mana overflow. Uriel thinks to herself that being comfortable is nice as she takes in his new appearance. Ding, a notification appears for Uriel White as she squeals with delight, thinking that being adorable is even better. Ding, with his mood at 10, the childlike Cashion insists he is not cute as Uriel realizes her thoughts slipped out. Now seated for tea in a grand library, Uriel focuses on the more important matter at hand. The adorable child Cashion timidly recalls that she wanted to lift his curse. Uriel asks if there's a way to do it, and then, leaning forward, confidently tells him to trust her. Winking, she thinks that since this is a game world, there must be a solution, especially with her guide Jun. Turning to her shoulder, Uriel asks her guide, Jun, what their next move should be. To her utter shock, the guide suddenly vanishes from her shoulder. Annoyed, Uriel wonders where the blasted ferret disappeared to at such a critical moment. She looks up from her seat, surprised by Cashion's expression. Ding! A notification reveals Cashion's trust has increased by 50 points as he looks up at her. Uriel is completely speechless, her mouth agape in shock at the sudden progress. A flashback begins, narrating how 25 years ago, the Romantina Empire fought a long war against the demon race. The war was won thanks to Emperor Caesar Romantina's decisive air raid, leading to a celebration. To prevent future demon uprisings, Emperor Caesar considered a powerful, horned magical artifact. He summoned the archmage Adelio, a silver-haired man who had been banished from the Empire. Anime Flix, the best site to watch anime and manga online. In the throne room, a noble with light purple hair protests vehemently to the Emperor, finding his decision unacceptable. The noble points at Archmage Adelio, warning that he is far too dangerous to be trusted. The long-haired archmage Adelio remains stoic in the face of the accusation. The protesting noble continues, blaming Adelio for the depletion of the Empire's mage forces. Pow, the Emperor slams his fist down and roars, "Silence!" silencing the intense protests. Emperor Caesar Romantina remains steadfast, declaring his intent to use the house's power to seal the undying Lucifer on the front lines. He glares at the noble, accusing him of siding with the demons, which the noble hastily denies. The Emperor orders the protesting nobles out of his sight, and they scramble away in terror. In a grand hall, Archmage Adelio thinks of the word murderer with a somber expression. Escorted by Imperial guards through a dungeon, Adelio scoffs, stating he never wanted to return to this filthy place. Adelio's purple eyes narrow as he begins to realize who is being held captive before him. In a dark cell, a horned demonic figure, identified as the undying Lucifer, is bound by chains and a glowing purple magic seal. Looking through the bars, Adelio observes that Lucifer has been bound by holy magic. Gripping his staff, Adelio notes that the binding spell is weak and won't hold for long. He tells Lucifer he bears no ill will and will make this quick, as he unleashes a powerful purple magic spell, Arg. As Lucifer screams in agony, Adelio's spell violently rips a glowing red heart from his chest. Smirking villainously, Adelio holds the heart, declaring that even an immortal can't break free without their core source of power. A glowing, purple, crystalline artifact pulses with dark energy and bloody tendrils. The scene shifts to a grand, red-roofed castle under a dark and cloudy sky. A narration explains that since Lucifer was sealed, the demons have never returned to the Romantina Empire, as a massive seal hovers over the land. Under the rule of Emperor Kaiser Romantina, the Empire has continued to enjoy an era of peace, free from demons. Huff! Uriel gasps, pulled from the vision as a system window declares the end of Cashion's Chapter 2, the Imperial Treasure. Returning to the present, a slightly dazed Uriel thinks to herself, "I'm back!" Uriel thinks about the flashback, deducing that Adelio is Cashion's father, as child Cashion looks at her curiously. Pondering the story, Uriel notes that Lucifer's body is locked away with the Imperial Treasure, and wonders why Cashion is staring. Uriel stares intently at the blushing child Cashion, thinking something is off since Lucifer is sealed, questioning how Adelio sacrificed his son. Cashion stammers, asking if she needs to say something. Determined, Uriel thinks she must see more of the past, but first needs to raise her trust level to unlock the next chapter. Popjun the guide suddenly reappears, startling Uriel, who scolds him for disappearing at a critical moment. Ahimjun proudly puffs out his chest, boasting that he was busy pulling strings to help her. Uriel asks what kind of event he's arranged, but Jun cryptically tells her to just wait and see. Standing tall, Jun brims with confidence, declaring that Uriel will be shocked when she finds out his plan. Uriel looks on, a question mark appearing above her head as she puzzles over her guide's words. Her confusion turns to shock as she gazes up at a massive, ominous, red-lit tower against a starry sky. A nervous child, Cashion questions Uriel's audacious plan to use her noble status to infiltrate the royal ball and steal the Imperial treasure. Done, done. Uriel confidently declares that it's the perfect cover. Uriel laughs cheerfully, saying it's fine, and noting that the royal ball event arrived earlier than expected, changing the schedule. At the tea table, a hesitant child Cashion reluctantly agrees to her plan. Child Cashion admits he's not good with crowds and never thought of sneaking in, which Uriel finds understandable. Cashion entrusts the mission to her, wishing her luck, and Uriel confidently accepts. After hearing the plan, a visibly nervous child Cashion shivers slightly. He tells Uriel that since the sun is setting, she should head back for the day. He gestures toward a grand door, explaining she can use it to return home, leaving her to question what he means. Uriel asks if the door leads outside, But Cashion corrects her, saying it's something else. He opens the door, revealing a brilliant, shining light. Peeking through the doorway, Uriel looks utterly baffled by what she sees. Stepping through the portal, she's stunned to find herself in her own lavishly decorated bedroom. Cashion explains the tower has portals that lead anywhere, a convenience she can use, prompting her to jokingly compare it to Doraemon. A thoughtful Uriel smiles, considering the possibilities with June on her shoulder. She gives Cashion a suspicious look, causing him to ask why she's staring at him that way. Cashion's red eyes widen in a blush-filled panic. Panicked, Cashion scrambles back, insisting he's a gentleman who would never do such a thing, as his stress level rises. Uriel is amused by his flustered reaction. June chides Uriel for teasing Cashion, but she just complains that the magic tower is too creepy. Waving goodbye, Uriel cheerfully announces that she's leaving. Looking at her with newfound resolve, Cashion says he'll trust her with the plan, which she happily accepts. Cashion stands alone in the room, watching the portal door after she is gone. A voice calls out his name, Cashion, making him turn in surprise. Popping her head back through the portal, Uriel gives him one last bit of advice before she goes. Winking, Uriel tells a stunned child Cashion that he's her partner for the ball, and must look dashing. The scene shifts to an opulent estate, as a voice calls out for Miss Uriel from outside. In NGH, Uriel groans in her sleep as a maid's voice announces, "It's time to wake up." Complaining about another routine day, Uriel is jolted awake when her maid rips her blanket away, insisting she get up immediately. A dazed Uriel questions her maid, Anne, who asks if she's forgotten what day it is. A formal introduction presents Uriel's personal maid, a cheerful, brown-haired woman with glasses named Anne. Uriel looks on in sudden realization, with June the ferret perched curiously on her shoulder. Uriel's thoughts clarify that today is a special day, unlike all the others. A brief, sparkling transition shows Uriel in a beautiful new outfit inside a grand building. At the entrance to a boutique called Lily's Clothes, a curly-haired woman with glasses warmly welcomes her in. The shopkeeper recognizes Uriel as the Duke of White's daughter and politely offers her services. Trying on a new dress, Uriel and Anne gaze in awe at the boutique's stunning collection. Overcome with emotion, Uriel thinks to herself that her own loop game plotline is finally beginning. As Uriel gets ready to shop, June intervenes, pointing to a plain white gown and declaring she's wearing that one. June reminds Uriel she insisted on going with Cashion, presenting a plain apprentice mage dress perfect for blending in. June explains Cashion's goal is to go unnoticed, presenting the simple dress as the perfect choice for a quiet entrance and exit. June insists she follow his lead, and a reluctant Uriel agrees, deciding that clearing the path is her top priority. Resolving to listen to June to avoid disaster, Uriel picks the plain dress, shocking her maid, Anne. Uriel wonders if hiding is what Cashion truly wants, but Anne voices her strong disapproval of the choice. Erg, June bonks Uriel on the head, scolding her for daring to ignore the route plan again. The shopkeeper welcomes them to the boutique as Uriel is reluctantly wrangled in the background. A beautiful blonde princess in a golden gown makes a grand entrance into the boutique. The newly arrived princess smirks, asking if this is truly the Empire's biggest boutique. While the shopkeeper fawns over the princess, Uriel wonders about the stunning new character's identity. A sparkling introduction panel reveals the new arrival is Princess Sia Valentine of the Kingdom of Valentine. Uriel learns Sia is a princess from an allied nation and is engaged to the first prince, wondering why his name is censored. Princess Sia approaches Uriel with a gentle smile and offers a greeting. A flustered Uriel returns the greeting as Sia pleasantly identifies her as the Duke of White's daughter. Uriel politely asks what brings the princess here today, surprised by how friendly Sia is despite her haughty appearance. Sia explains that she's attending the imperial ball and is unfamiliar with the local fashion. Looking at a dress, Sia continues, explaining that she wants to fit in with Romantina's style. A system window pops up as Sia Valentine turns to Uriel and asks her to pick out a dress for her. Uriel processes the request, considering that Sia wants to fit in at the upcoming ball. Wow, Uriel is amazed as a system window presents two dress choices for the princess. Princess Sia warmly takes Uriel's hands, declaring that her thoughtful gesture is more than enough. Uriel beams, thanking the princess for helping her figure things out. Princess Sia looks back at Uriel with a faint, curious smile. Sia says she's glad she could help, but as she leaves the boutique, a notification states their relationship has not changed. The scene shifts to a nighttime view of the Grand Romantina Imperial Palace. Dressed in formal attire, Cashion stands alone near the palace entrance, looking out at the guests. A voice calls out his name from behind, and Cashion turns to see who it is. Cashion turns with a slightly startled expression toward the voice that called him. Uriel makes a dazzling entrance in a beautiful blue gown, asking if she kept him waiting. A flustered Cashion stammers that she did not, covering his blushing face as Uriel asks if something is wrong. Still hiding his face, Cashion struggles to find the right words. Cashion declares he can't go in because the ball is too bright, while a radiant Uriel looks on. He tells a surprised Uriel that he'll wait outside, suggesting it's best she go alone. Jun appears, chiding Uriel for stressing Cashion out, and she playfully teases him back for getting dressed up. While a flustered Jun protests, Uriel thoughtfully considers the situation. Standing alone on a balcony, a dejected Cashion stares out at the night as Uriel's voiceover thinks, even if it's just a game. Uriel's voiceover sympathizes with Cashion, who spent his life alone to hide his curse, as he blushes and looks away. Her thoughts continue, realizing he ultimately locked himself away in that imposing tower to remain isolated. Back in the present, Cashion desperately calls out to Uriel, but she turns with a smile, reassuring him that it's okay. Looking at a surprised Cashion, Uriel declares that he has her now, and is no longer alone. A shocked Jun watches as a system window announces that Cassion's affection has increased by 30 points. Click, a cat-faced padlock unlocks as Jun shouts in disbelief that this breaks the game system. The birth of the tower backstory continues. As a lock clicks open above them, Jun shouts that Uriel holding Cassion's hand is a system violation. Uriel sighs in relief, thinking to herself that at least it's not a sudden death ending. She looks at Cashion and asks him to tell her his story, triggering a flashback to a grand palace. The flashback begins, introducing Adelio Hellard, the man who sealed Lucifer, symbolized by a glowing red gem. A narration explains that Adelio was recognized for his achievement and pardoned of his crimes by the Emperor. Adelio kneels before Emperor Caesar Romantina, who favors him for his heroic deed. Now, the Imperial Court Mage, Adelio, stands confidently amidst blue roses as the narration states everything seemed to be going smoothly. Adelio addresses a group off-screen, coolly advising them to stay on their guard. A curly-haired noble scoffs, complaining that a kin-killing murderer is now casually roaming the palace. The curly-haired noble and his companion sneer at Adelio, remarking on his audacity for not even flinching. A bystander warns Adelio to watch his back if he wants to live comfortably in the palace, but he remains silent. Adelio suddenly breaks into a wide, mischievous grin. The curly-haired noble recoils in anger, demanding to know why Adelio is laughing so creepily, but Adelio simply calls him rude. Adelio thinks to himself that the noble is the one who's truly shameless. Poof! The curly-haired noble's pants suddenly vanish, leaving him standing awkwardly in his bloomers. The crowd erupts in laughter and points at the noble's obscene and embarrassing predicament. The furious noble accuses Adelio of using vulgar magic, but Adelio plays innocent, asking if he has any proof. The noble angrily declares his position as head of imperial oversight, but Adelio calmly replies that he's already aware. Adelio calls him out as the count who wears a fake hairpiece, which promptly flies off his bald head as onlookers gasp. Peeved? The mortified count shivers in humiliation, stammering in rage as onlookers mock his strange hair. The count flees, shouting a threat that Adelio will regret this, while Adelio watches him go. HMPH. Adelio scoffs dismissively as the narration explains this was just his way. The scene shifts to a peaceful forest, where Adelio walks toward a quaint wooden cabin. Opening the door with a warm smile, Adelio asks someone inside how their body is feeling. A woman with short black hair sits up in bed, happily exclaiming Adelio's name. Adelio's wife, Dorothy, is introduced as she tells him she's feeling better thanks to the medicine he gave her. Adelio expresses his relief that the medicine is working, while Dorothy marvels at how he found a cure for her supposedly incurable disease. Dorothy looks at Adelio with concern, saying she was worried he went through too much trouble for the ingredients. Adelio smiles softly, promising to tell her everything once she is fully healed. A narration explains that although Adelio gained wealth and power, all he truly cared about was his wife Dorothy's well-being. The scene shifts back to the Grand Imperial Palace at dusk. Adelio approaches Emperor Caesar Romantina's desk, announcing that he was summoned. The Emperor looks up, acknowledging Adelio and stating that he's sure Adelio already knows why. Emperor Caesar Romantina holds the red sealing gem, explaining that Lucifer alone isn't enough to overwhelm the entire demon race. Adelio listens intently, simply asking the Emperor to continue. The Emperor reveals his plan to lure the moongazer demon, Asmodeus, using Lucifer as bait, which requires them to temporarily unseal him. Adelio flatly refuses the Emperor's dangerous proposal. As he turns to leave, Adelio states firmly that Lucifer's seal cannot be undone again and tells the Emperor to give up. Adelio's inner monologue reveals he's fine with offending the Emperor, whom he considers endlessly greedy. The Emperor questions Adelio's defiance, accusing him of becoming a traitor once more. The Emperor claims he expected Adelio's refusal and offers a single piece of advice because of their past bond. With an ominous glint in his eye, the Emperor tells Adelio he'd best return home quickly. Adelio glances back with a cold, resolute expression as he walks away through the palace hall. His thoughts scream Dorothy's name in a frantic, jagged burst of panic. Arriving too late, Adelio finds his and Dorothy's quaint cabin completely engulfed in a raging inferno. Onlookers gossip coldly, speculating that the kinslaying Adelio got what he deserved as revenge. Adelio stands silently before the blaze, his expression stoic and unreadable in the fiery glow. A close-up on his eye reflects the flames as he realizes with grim finality that this tragedy is happening again. A vision shows a woman in a pink dress on a cliff, destined to live a cursed life as an offering for her family's prosperity. A smiling Dorothy in a field of flowers fades into the fire below as she laments dying so miserably without sin. His face shrouded by hair, Adelio's red eye glows as he reaches out, thinking that none of it matters anymore. Consumed by grief, he decides this cursed world that brought Dorothy misery is not worth existing. Adelio raises his hands, preparing to unleash his devastating power upon the world. As onlookers watch in shock, a woman shouts that the ground is splitting, and dark tendrils of magic erupt from the earth. Kaya, panic spreads as the crowd shrieks, and a man screams for everyone to run for their lives. Adelio vows he will never forgive the empire that killed Dorothy, as his magic consumes the fleeing nobles. Wreathed in shadow and crackling purple energy, Adelio's face contorts with rage, his eye glowing a demonic red. A narration explains that black lightning rained down upon the empire, now a terrifying, inhuman figure of shadow. The narration names this transformation the wrath of the archmage, Adelio Hellard. The monstrous, shadowy form of Adelio looms, his glowing red eye the only feature visible in the darkness. The bald count, cornered by the shadowy Adelio, desperately confesses that he was ordered to set the fire and begs for his home to be spared. U.R.K. The Count is struck by a tendril of dark magic as he frantically denies being the one who lit the flame. Lifted into the air by dark magic, the Count struggles, foolishly threatening that the Emperor will not forgive this. Adelio's voice dismisses the threat as naive, a single red light gleaming menacingly in the dark. Gah! The Count is crushed by the darkness as Adelio's thoughts mock him for still thinking such things matter. Enraged, Adelio looks to the sky, seething that human arrogance has always disgusted him. As Adelio's red eye glares, a disembodied voice whispers his name, trying to reach him through his rage. A lone figure stands defiantly in front of the roaring inferno that was once the cabin. The figure is revealed to be Dorothy, untouched by the flames, who calls out Adelio's name with sorrowful eyes. Adelio stares in utter disbelief, wondering how she possibly survived the inferno. Without hesitation, Adelio walks through the raging fire toward Dorothy. Ugh. Cough. One of the nobles, caught in the magical onslaught, chokes in the background. Terrified, the noble points at Dorothy, screaming that she's a monster for being unharmed by the fire. Adelio rushes forward, sweeping Dorothy into a desperate embrace amidst the flames. Dorothy hugs him back, reassuring him that she's fine and pleading for him to stop. He clings to her as she begs him not to suffer because of her anymore. Onlookers point in terror towards the forest as a dark power emanates from it. Dark, thorny vines writhe and crackle with energy, enveloping the forest in an ominous aura. Ugh. The bald Count is thrown to the ground by a whip of dark magic. Battered and soot-stained, the Count scrambles to his feet, realizing the forest is now dangerous, and he must warn everyone. He looks back in terror at a newly formed, monstrous black tower glowing with red light, screaming that the forest is full of monsters. The terrified Count flees for his life from the cursed forest. Adelio holds Dorothy close, promising that the tower he built with all his mana will now protect her. He vows she will never be hurt again, but Dorothy asks if it isn't weird that she was completely unharmed by the flames. A shadowy silhouette of Dorothy with a glowing red core on her chest asks him what exactly he made her eat. Adelio reassures her with a gentle smile that it's not weird at all. He then grins maniacally, revealing the shocking truth. She consumed the heart of the immortal demon, Lucifer. As Dorothy stares in stunned silence, Adelio happily declares she will now be safe and healthy for the rest of her life. The narration concludes that this place, now known as Thanatos, became a cursed forest from which no one ever returned alive. The flashback ends, leaving Uriel looking shocked and pale in the present. Uriel frantically looks around the now empty ballroom, wondering where June and Cashion went after she saw the hidden story. Worrying it's a bug, she's startled by Cashion's voice saying, "You're awake," and is shocked to realize she's lying down. Cashion explains that he brought Uriel under the table because she looked weak and it seemed like the coziest spot. Hiding under the table, Uriel thanks him but privately thinks he's a very gloomy guy. Her thoughts drift to more important matters as she sits beside Cashion's boots. Now standing before him, Uriel understands the origin of the magic tower and suggests they postpone the mission if he's unwell. Clutching his chest in distress, Cashion says he would feel awful if she got hurt because of him. Uriel leans in to check his temperature, asking if he's feeling any better now. As she touches his forehead, a flustered Cashion flinches back, stammering for her to wait. Uriel grabs his wrist, startled by his reaction, and exclaiming in surprise. She studies him intently, thinking this is more than a curse, just as she hears a noise and asks if someone is there. A blonde woman in a white dress lifts the tablecloth, shocked to find the two of them hiding underneath. The woman, introduced as Sia Valentine, covers her mouth with a blush, surprised by the scene. The scene transitions to a beautiful, starlit castle balcony at night. On the balcony, Sia Valentine smiles and dismisses the incident as a misunderstanding, though the narration notes she doesn't believe Uriel's explanation. Uriel awkwardly tries to explain herself, but the narration confirms that Sia isn't buying her story. Believing they are a couple, Sia slyly asks for relationship advice, revealing she is meeting her fiancé soon. Sia explains she wants to treat her fiancé as sweetly as they treat each other. As the narration confirms, she is convinced they are lovers. A man with light brown hair approaches, addressing Sia as Your Highness, interrupting their conversation. Sia announces that it's time for her to leave and walks away with her attendant. As she leaves, Sia smiles at the attendant and says she looks forward to seeing him again. Uriel watches her go with a strained expression, thinking Sia's elegant looks don't match her personality at all. Snapping back to the mission, Uriel tells herself this is no time for idle thoughts. Uriel excitedly tells Cashion it's time to find the heirloom, but he worriedly asks if she knows where it is. She offers a cheeky grin, while Cashion can only stare back, speechless. Uriel confidently points to the glowing red heart on his chest, declaring it will lead them to their goal. Cashion flushes, completely flustered that she somehow knows about the heart. His mind races, wondering how she found out, and concluding she is dangerous, as dark magic seeps from his feet while they walk. His thoughts turn sinister as he watches her, resolving that he must get rid of her for knowing too much. A beautiful vision of Uriel smiling brightly among pink roses fills his mind. Despite his dark resolve to eliminate her, Cashion can't help but blush as he looks at Uriel's back. The scene pans out to an overhead view of the castle's manicured gardens and courtyards. A lone silhouette stands, looking out from a grand, arched window of the palace. Elsewhere, a man with blonde hair decides it's time to go downstairs, receiving a quiet yes in response. A close-up reveals a glowing green gem on a necklace as a voice promises to be right there. A promotional page thanks the readers and encourages them to support the creators on their website. The scene shifts to a sweeping night view of the magnificent Romantina Imperial Palace. Uriel peeks out, pleased to have safely reached the 4th floor, as item descriptions note her dress reduces her presence, while her companion's tuxedo boosts his cuteness. She stands before a grand, ornate set of doors, certain that the heirloom is inside the Emperor's office. Looking back at Cashion, Uriel encourages him to follow his heart, assuring him it will lead them to the heirloom. She urges the hesitant and blushing Cashion to trust her so they can go get it, Uriel begins to say they can do it together, but is cut off by her weasel companion, who insists she must go alone. Startled by the weasel's sudden appearance, Uriel demands to know where it's been. The white weasel in a tuxedo strikes a triumphant pose on the balcony railing. The weasel explains that Cashion cannot be directly involved, prompting a confused Uriel to ask why not. Putting on a pair of glasses, the weasel states it's against the rules, while Uriel identifies him as the weasel from the Duke's house. The weasel explains that as the player, Uriel's role is to help Cashion, not the other way around. He continues his explanation by pointing out Cashion's massive and unstable mana power. Patting her head, the weasel calls Uriel a lowbie and says it's safer for her to go alone, causing her to grumble that she'd be high level if not for all the resets. Determined, Uriel turns back to the large doors and declares she's going to check it out. She cautiously pushes the door open, and a system message confirms she has entered Emperor Kaisar's office. Inside the office, Uriel senses the room is saturated with a powerful, magical energy. Determined, Uriel resolves to quickly find the source of this immense power. Her eyes widen in surprise as she spots something on the Emperor's grand desk. Spotting an ornate hexagonal box on the desk, she wonders if she's found the heirloom. The scene shifts to a woman with dark hair sitting alone at a dining table. Elsewhere, Cashion sits alone in a corner, anxiously worrying about Uriel's well-being. As Cashion mopes in the corner, his heart begins to beat faster, and he realizes the heirloom must be close. Suddenly, an overwhelming sensation washes over him, and his eye glows a menacing red as he questions the feeling. Startled by the sensation, Cashion dramatically leaps to his feet, sending a tablecloth flying and shocking nearby guests. Certain of the feeling in his chest, Cashion stands up, catching the eye of nearby ladies who wonder where the handsome man came from. His gaze locks onto a group of people across the room, focusing intently on a blonde man in an ornate uniform. A close-up reveals the source of the reaction, a glowing green gem hanging from the blonde man's neck. The camera focuses on the handsome, blonde-haired man wearing the mysterious gem. Cashion looks on with a troubled expression, his gaze fixed on the man. Meanwhile, back in the office, Uriel opens the box, only to find it completely empty, much to her disbelief. Panicked, Uriel realizes she's holding Lucifer's horn, not the Romantina stone, and connects it to the reaction from Lucifer's heart. A voice suddenly speaks from behind her, condescendingly, noting that the Tower Master has come somewhere she doesn't belong. Turning, Uriel finds herself face to face with a man in regal, fur-trimmed robes. Emperor Caesar Romantina appears, a smug grin on his face as he commands her to remove her hood and reveal her identity. A guard shouts about an intruder and rushes to protect the Emperor as Uriel laments her fate, certain this is a bad ending. Before the guards can reach her, a hand grabs her hood from behind as someone demands to know who she is. Caught by a guard, Uriel's mind races, remembering how June had assured her the office would be empty. As the guard pulls back her hood, the Emperor stares in shock, and dark, shadowy energy begins to fill the room. The Emperor stares at her, stunned, and calls out the name Adelio, leaving an unhooded Uriel completely baffled. The Emperor remains frozen, his face a mask of pure shock and disbelief. Uriel wonders who Adelio is, while the Emperor thinks about why everyone in the room has suddenly frozen in place. She turns to the frozen guard, a realization dawning on her as she processes the strange scene. Looking around at the completely frozen guards and Emperor, Uriel wonders if she's experiencing a bad ending or just some serious game lag. Suddenly, a hand grabs her wrist, and she whirls around in surprise. A mysterious man with white hair pulls her away, prompting a frantic Uriel to demand who he is as they run. A voice apologizes in her mind, admitting they didn't realize a bug would alter the story this much. The white-haired man asks urgently if anyone managed to see her face. He explains that without his full admin rights, he can only freeze time for 1 minute, which will make the characters feel like they just saw a ghost. Staring at his familiar bear ears, she finally recognizes her guide, whispering his name, Jun. He tells her he only has 1 minute in this form, leaving Uriel with her mind completely blown. With a confident grin, Jun tells her they need to run while they still can. He leads her in a dash down the grand palace staircase, making their escape. As they run, Uriel can't help but blush, shocked that her guide is secretly a handsome character. Growing suspicious, Uriel confronts him, asking if he's really just a simple guide, but he remains silent. He dodges the question with a brilliant smile, grandly welcoming her back to the banquet hall. He reminds her they have no time for questions as the time freeze is about to end. June instructs her to handle the panicking Cashion before he reverts back to his weasel form. Uriel presses him about how a guide can use such abilities, but he cheerfully tells her to move past it for now. At the same time, Cashion has a revelation. Realizing his heart wasn't drawn to the heirloom, but to something or someone else, his thoughts turn to Uriel, worrying that even as a princess, she'll face suspicion if caught sneaking around the palace. He realizes that in the worst-case scenario, she could be mistaken for a spy and executed. The thought terrifies him, his face contorting in horror at the possibility of losing her. Determined to protect her, he decides he must go to her now, ignoring the ghostly image of Adelio calling him a fool as he breaks into a run. Cashion's heart, wrapped in chains, resists as he vows not to let himself get any closer to her. A quiet moment focuses on his formal shoes as he steps across the ornate palace floor. Cashion re-enters the bustling ballroom, his back turned to the crowd. Uriel approaches him with a knowing look, remarking that he finally stepped away from the table. Blushing, Cashion admits that crowded places feel suffocating to him. He stands beside Uriel, resolving that despite his discomfort, he can't run away. The scene transitions to a grand, sweeping view of the palace grounds at twilight. Cashion asks Uriel how she managed her daring escape, and she awkwardly deflects, saying she just sort of ended up back here. Uriel fumes, annoyed that her guide only goes silent at times like this, as Jun the Weasel privately admits he doesn't know how it happened either. Mortified at her spectacular failure, Uriel feels she can't face Cashion, but he surprises her by calling her actions impressive. Uriel cheerfully starts to ask about the heirloom, but Cassian's quiet "Ah" cuts her off. She stares in shock, as Cashion calmly confirms he knows the heirloom wasn't in the office. Immensely relieved, Uriel grabs Cashion's arm, glad there was never an heirloom there to begin with. Cashion looks down with a solemn expression, admitting that his heart was mistaken. As the system window notes Cassion's depression has increased, Uriel quickly tries to reassure him, insisting it was her decision. Cashion takes her hand, his expression full of emotion as he tells her he regretted his actions. His grip tightens as he stammers that because of him, she was put in grave danger. The two share an intense, blushing glance, Uriel looking concerned while Cashion stares at her. Uriel is utterly bewildered, wondering why the man who was just trying to kill her is now so worried about her safety. Cashion offers to keep her safe with concealment magic, but Uriel violently recoils, shouting, "No," and sending her weasel flying. She quickly reassures a dejected Cashion, reminding him this is why they came to the ball, and that he doesn't need to worry. Confused by his actions, Uriel wonders why he let her hand go. A notification announces a mistake has been made, leaving a flustered Uriel completely blank-faced and confused. Uriel panics internally as multiple prompts appear, questioning Cashion's reaction and urging her to grab his hand again. Realizing this is turning into a romance route, Uriel watches in horror as Cashion formally extends his hand. Uriel frantically tries to backpedal, insisting that wasn't what she meant as a chibi. Cashion dies of a broken heart. Backing away in panic, Uriel bumps into a blonde-haired man and quickly apologizes. The blonde man apologizes in return, while a grumpy Cashion looks on, and the weasel glares from the floor. Uriel looks up at the man, a confused "huh" on her face. A system notice reveals she has encountered the bugged first Prince Durloman II, who possesses the Imperial heirloom. The glitching prince smiles down at Uriel, stating that he's found her. He gently takes her hand. The prince kisses her hand, leaving both Uriel and Cashion utterly speechless and shocked. Cashion glares furiously, thinking that Uriel is with him. As Uriel calls his name in alarm, royal guards intercept Cashion, ordering him not to obstruct the prince. Uriel looks up at the prince, telling him she's been a certain way since she first opened her eyes. As he holds her hand, she silently wonders how he could have possibly seen her before. The system announces that the bugged-out mosaic is clearing, and reveals the man as First Prince Javier Romantina. The weasel guide facepalms, muttering that things just got complicated. Uriel stares in utter disbelief, unable to process what's happening. A brief, beautiful vision flashes of a pink-haired girl in a garden of blue roses. Another vision shows a young blonde-haired man with a shadowed face, holding a great sword. Prince Javier's expression clears as he remembers Jun mentioning a bug. He looks at Uriel with deep gratitude, calling her his savior. The prince gazes at her, his expression filled with sincere reverence. Uriel is stunned, questioning how he could possibly remember her after a full system reset. A system message pops up, as Javier smiles warmly and confirms her thoughts are correct. Uriel is horrified to see Javier's affection level is already at 70%, while Cashion glowers jealously behind her. Flustered, Uriel tries to deflect his praise, nervously insisting she's no savior and hasn't done anything. Prince Javier firmly insists she saved him, but a flustered Uriel tries to deflect, thinking savior is too much, as she realizes his affection has risen again. He grasps her hand tightly, telling her he's always wanted to see her again. He calls her the one who woke him from his eternal slumber, leaving a shocked Uriel speechless. Prince Javier gazes down at her with a gentle, knowing smile as petals fall around them. He expresses his gladness at their reunion as a system window confirms his trust level has hit a staggering 70%. Uriel laughs nervously, astounded that the corpse-like guy from before is now such a major character. As Javier holds her hand, Uriel becomes increasingly flustered, feeling herself slowly losing all rationality. With Cashion watching from behind, Uriel internally complains that the game developers should have just made it a romance game. Suddenly, Cassian's gloved hand decisively pulls Uriel's wrist away from the prince's grasp. Prince Javier turns with a severe expression, demanding to know what's going on. With a sudden pull, Cashion yanks a stunned Uriel behind him as a system notice declares he is feeling jealous. A new notification announces Cashion's affection has jumped to 80%, leaving a frazzled Uriel to wonder what's wrong with him now. Caught between a smiling Javier and a blushing Cashion, Uriel panics at their sudden changes in behavior. The chibi Uriel screams in terror, realizing she's in serious trouble as she's caught between Javier and a dark energy-wielding Cashion in a mock affection-level battle. The surrounding party guests begin to murmur, watching the tense standoff between the two men over Uriel. With his arms crossed, Prince Javier angrily asks Cashion how he dares to stand in his way. Cashion protectively holds Uriel and declares he's defending his lady, prompting an enraged June to object from his shoulder. Javier addresses Cashion by his full title, stating he already knows all about the Lord of the Thames Forest. He menacingly alludes to knowing about Cashion's father's achievements and his atrocities. Javier condescendingly adds that Cashion, however, seems to know nothing about him. With a smug grin, Javier claims the Thames Forest's continued existence is entirely due to his generosity. Cashion furiously refutes him, insisting the Thames Forest has nothing to do with the prince's disappearance. Javier coldly retorts that whether it's related or not is for him to decide, not Cashion. Uriel gasps, her eyes wide with shock at the escalating tension. Drawing his sword, Prince Javier vows to uncover the truth himself, including why Cashion has appeared at the palace. Cashion unleashes a torrent of dark magic, challenging the prince to try as Uriel gasps in horror. As their powers clash, Uriel panics, realizing the situation has turned into a total disaster. Desperate, Uriel shakes June, begging the NPC to do something, while the weasel shrieks for help. She continues to shake him in frustration, questioning how he can even call himself an NPC. A calm voice calls out, "Lady White," and a surprised Uriel looks up, still clutching Jun. Prince Javier glances toward the source of the voice, momentarily distracted from the fight. A beautiful woman with long, pale, blonde hair approaches, greeting the princess and noting their timing. The woman, Sia Valentine, coyly remarks on how close Uriel and Cashion are, making Uriel realize their compromising position. As a system window confirms Sia has misunderstood their relationship, Uriel despairs, certain any explanation would be useless. Prince Javier looks away from the confrontation, remarking that he heard an intruder was in the palace. Sia asks Javi if he's okay, and he coolly reassures her that it is nothing serious. From behind a curtain, Uriel and Cashion watch the pair interact, utterly bewildered. Uriel's eyes widen in confusion as she observes Sia and Prince Javier standing closely together. A system window pops up, revealing the shocking truth. Sia Valentine is Javier Romantina's fiancée. Staring at a portrait-like image of the couple, Uriel shouts in disbelief that they're engaged. Uriel angrily throttles Jun, demanding to know why a romanceable character has a fiancé, as the weasel urges her to retreat. Peeking from her hiding spot, Uriel hears talk of the Emperor, her hand still gripping Jun. Javier turns to Uriel and formally announces that he must regrettably take his leave. Bidding farewell to White Lady, Javier turns to leave with Sia, who wishes Uriel and Cashion well. Uriel watches helplessly as the prince and his fiancée walk away down the grand palace hall. A grim notification warns that if he leaves, they might lose their only chance to lift Cashion's curse. Panicked, Uriel shouts for Jun to stop time again so they can steal the heirloom and escape. Prince Javier continues to walk away, oblivious to her desperation. A system message appears, stating the time stop function is a daily skill as Uriel lunges forward in a futile attempt to reach them. The glowing blue heirloom dangles from Javier's neck, just out of Uriel's desperate reach as he departs. With a triumphant smile, Uriel snatches the glowing blue heirloom out of the air, exclaiming that she's got it. Suddenly, Sia grabs Uriel's hands, congratulating her on the nice catch as Uriel yelps in pain. Uriel is shocked by Sia's immense strength, wondering why the princess is so powerful, as Sia remarks that the situation was almost dangerous. Sia cheerfully identifies the heirloom as the Romantina family's necklace. As Sia calmly reveals, the necklace explodes. June, the weasel, is flung into the air with the heirloom, and a horrified Uriel looks up. June, clutching the heirloom mid-flight, has a sudden, panicked realization. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the ballroom floor. Uriel sweats nervously, desperately hoping this isn't actually happening. As Uriel panics that this is supposed to be a graceful romance game, Cashion desperately shouts her name while Javier and Sia look on. A massive explosion of light and power rocks the grand ballroom. Amidst the smoke and chaos, panicked voices call out for the crown prince, Javi. Sia rushes to Prince Javier's side to ask if he's okay, and he reassures her that he's fine and no one was hurt. Guards hurry to the prince and Sia's side, and one suggests escorting the princess to safety first. Prince Javier looks deeply troubled, his hand pressed to his forehead in thought. A vision of a shocked Uriel appears, standing in a field of beautiful blue roses. Prince Javier stands alone in the vast empty ballroom, as petals drift down around him. Elsewhere, a young woman with glasses and light brown hair giggles to herself while watching a banquet from a high window. A plate of checkerboard cookies is presented as a thought bubble muses that Milady must be enjoying the banquet. At a lavish tea table, the woman with glasses is surprised to learn her lady's escort wasn't Lord Hellert. The woman smiles warmly, hoping a wonderful destiny finds her lady this year. A horde of large, horned cat beasts mobs the tea table, devouring all the cookies and pastries. The woman with glasses calmly tells the feasting cat beasts that she's glad the cookies suit their taste. Yawning, she sips her tea as the horned cat beasts continue to munch away contentedly. She smiles, saying she's truly delighted, as a large horned cat beast looks on happily. The woman, Anne, wonders why everyone is looking up, just as Uriel and Cashion crash through the ceiling with Uriel shouting her name. Anne stares up from the floor, her glasses askew, and her face a mask of pure shock. A dark, ominous tower looms under a blood-red sky. Back in the library, the horned cat beasts have calmly resumed their tea party. Anne daydreams blissfully on the floor, seemingly unfazed by the recent chaos. A tiny, chastised Uriel is lectured by the horned cat beasts for always acting on her own. The scolding continues as Uriel is told she can't just move without telling anyone. June the Weasel furiously points at Uriel, telling her she could have been seriously hurt. Uriel explodes in anger, yelling at June for not using the time stop function and for not knowing the heirloom was a bomb. She furiously shakes the weasel, demanding to know what kind of NPC forgets the game's settings. Cashion's voice calls out to Lady Uriel, and she turns in surprise to see him. Uriel thanks Cashion for the teleportation spell as the system window announces his rage gauge has increased. As a notification warns that Cashion's stress level is in the warning zone, he asks why she goes so far, prompting Uriel to quickly try and reassure him. Uriel internally panics, wondering if he's angry about her recklessness, but Cashion cuts her off, insisting that's not it. He suddenly grabs her, pulling her close in a shocking move. Cashion embraces Uriel tightly, pleading with her to stop doing dangerous things. They hold each other in a tender moment as ethereal flowers bloom around them. A confused and blushing chibi Uriel wonders what's happening as Cashion holds her. Cashion holds her tightly, his expression a mixture of intense emotion and a deep blush. Uriel panics as she realizes the romantic mood is escalating, while Jun watches with alarm. A system window announces Cashion's affection has skyrocketed to 99% as he embraces Uriel. June the Weasel panics, screaming for Uriel to escape before the situation officially turns into a romance. Flustered Uriel tries to explain that while he is part of it, she has her own reasons for her actions. Looking into his eyes, she tells him she's not someone worth caring about. Cashion holds her even closer, murmuring that perhaps it's only natural that he was cursed. A final notification announces the story will be continued in the Cursed Child arc. A baby cries, a red glow emanating from its chest as it wonders why this is happening. As the baby's cries echo through a moonlit room, it continues to wonder why this fate had to befall it. A long-haired man mournfully calls out the name Dorothy, then screams in anguish over a woman in bed, vowing her survival was thanks to Lucifer's heart. The scene shifts from a grand, sunlit library to a close-up of a hand holding a book inscribed with a complex magic circle. A young, red-eyed boy happily runs through the library, clutching the large magic book. The boy rushes to his father, who sits by a large window, proudly exclaiming that he's read every book in the magic tower. His father, face obscured in shadow, tells a young Cashion that to become the master of the tower, he must cultivate more mana. Cashion solemnly agrees, reflecting that his father could never accept him for the way he was born. In a sunlit forest, a tiny Cashion runs after the distant figure of his father, calling out to him. His father, a man with long, light-colored hair, turns and remarks that this is the prime time for studying. The father asks what he wants, and a beaming young Cashion simply giggles in response. With a bright smile, Cashion presents his father with a beautiful, glowing blue rose, declaring it the legendary Thames flower. With a harsh thwack, his father slaps the flower from his hand, ordering him to stop wasting time on nonsense. The father coldly dismisses him to focus on his pitiful mana, leaving a crestfallen Cashion to sit dejectedly on the ground. In a dark, fiery vision, a voice cries out, "Father!" as chained hands are shown. Cashion's father stares grimly at a glowing, magically infused crystal in his hand. A bound, brown-haired boy kneels on a glowing red magic circle, begging for his life, as the long-haired man looms over him. A demonic form of red energy manifests, laughing at the man for killing his own son to save a dying woman. The demon leans close to the terrified, bound boy, mockingly asking who the real devil is. Cashion's father silences the demon, ordering it to do exactly as it's told. He holds the glowing crystal and threatens to crush the demon if it speaks nonsense again. The demon laughs and accepts the contract, calling the boy a generous offering to resurrect a dead woman. The boy, his face smudged and tear-streaked, screams for his father to please stop. His father's face is lost in shadow, his eyes glowing with an ominous red light. A red, arcane symbol appears above the boy's head as he looks on in terror. Cashion realizes with dawning horror that from the beginning, his father never saw him as family, only as a sacrifice. The demonic energy slams down onto the boy, who lies helpless on the magic circle. With red eyes blazing, the boy vows that he will not be used and discarded. A pulsing red, heart-like object throbs in a dark void. The dark, swirling red energy continues to pulse ominously. Cashion's father gasps in shock as the boy on the floor is consumed by a torrent of dark power. The father stares in disbelief, realizing the power of the spell being unleashed. Panicked, the father screams for Cashion to stop, warning that finishing the spell means his own death. A massive red dragon named Mordos materializes, questioning the source of the immense magical energy. The dragon's eye widens in terror, realizing it's about to lose its heart's master. A cataclysmic explosion of pink and white energy erupts from the top of the dark magic tower. Back in the present, Cashion holds Uriel and confesses with a haunted expression that he killed both his father and mother. He gently pushes Uriel away, pleading with her not to risk her life for a person like him. Uriel watches him, sensing the deep fear behind his words as he recounts his past. She longs to comfort the pained Cashion, who looks down, consumed by his traumatic memories. A system notice declares Cashion is in extreme despair, and Uriel panics, realizing she must comfort him to prevent the suicide ending. With June on her shoulder, Uriel hesitates, worried that comforting him carelessly could have disastrous consequences. With his affection at 99%, a system window presents Uriel with two choices: hold Cassion's hand or pretend not to notice. Uriel breaks into a cold sweat, realizing with horror that his affection score is about to max out. The scene transitions from the dark, imposing tower to the tense atmosphere of the room where the two stand. Observing Cassion's trembling fingertips, a distraught Uriel agonizes over the two choices before her. Uriel knows that comforting Cashion in his current state will raise his affection score and lock them into a romance route. June warns that the other option is worse: If she pretends not to notice, Cashion will fall into depression and die. Uriel groans, frustrated by the impossible choice she's been forced into. Sweating and trembling, Uriel remains frozen, paralyzed by indecision. Uriel stares at Cashion's trembling fingers, agonizing over the two choices and lamenting that she didn't expect to be put on the spot like this. Gazing at the blushing Cashion, Uriel reflects with a tinge of bitterness that he really is just a game character. A giant horned cat beast scolds Anne for admiring the scene, asking if this is really the time. Uriel plugs her ears and screams for everyone to shut up, overwhelmed by the pressure as someone calls her name. Looking stunned, Uriel holds up a docile Jun the Weasel. Anne, sitting on the floor, asks a dazed Uriel what is happening and reminds her that she just fell from the sky. Uriel panics, wondering if her inaction triggered a, quote, a timed idle event, as Cashion suddenly wakes up behind her. Startled by his voice calling her name, Uriel turns to face a concerned Cashion. Cashion gently takes her hand, asking if she has something she wants to say to him. Uriel panics, realizing with a jolt that Cashion has woken up and the situation is escalating. As Cashion calls her name, a flustered Uriel wonders what to do while he covers his face in embarrassment. Bam. Unable to decide, Uriel headbutts Cashion, with a system notice confirming she has attacked him. A chibi Cashion lies knocked out as a notification explains he welcomed the attack, which succeeded, leaving him unconscious. Uriel sighs in relief, thinking she's saved. Uriel stumbles back feeling sick as Anne asks if she's okay, to which she replies that she was just as surprised. Looking down at the unconscious Cashion, Uriel sighs and wonders what she should do now. A horned cat beast and June instruct Uriel to take Cashion to the bedroom, leaving her utterly shocked. Anne watches as Uriel is dragged down a hall with Cashion, learning his trust is now 100, and a hidden story can be unlocked in the bedroom. A bewildered Anne watches them leave, calling out for her lady. Cassион's eyes suddenly snap open in shock. Cashion recoils in shock, asking what she's doing here, while Uriel calmly teases him for screaming at the sight of his crush. Cashion stammers, flustered by her comment, as Uriel giggles mischievously under the blanket. Still blushing, Cashion asks what's going on and why she's in his room. Exhausted, Uriel snuggles into the covers, sighing that she needs to rest after nearly dying on the way there. A flashback begins, identifying the current location as Cassion's hidden bedroom in the tower. The memory shows an exhausted Uriel being dragged up the tower with an unconscious Cashion, complaining about how long it's taking. Back in the present, Uriel sighs, recalling the grueling journey and thinking it felt like hell. A tiny chibi Uriel peeks over the covers at a still confused Cashion. She looks at him sincerely and tells him she hopes he can stop blaming himself now. Uriel continues, her expression filled with earnest conviction. She declares that he is someone truly worthy of love, leaving Cashion completely stunned.